Oh, hello everybody. I think I'm already live. I didn't realize that. Usually it gives me like a, 3, 2, 1 type of thing. Anyway, so hi everyone. It's awesome to see you. I am going to just post a couple of things and cross post other groups and such. So give me 1 second and I will be back with you. Let's do this here. Oops, there we go. And as usual, one of the first comments is going to be with some links for you guys to, get a little bit more information. So give me 1 second. But hi, everyone. It's so good to see you guys all. Let's go here. I wish I could do that ahead of time, but unfortunately that does not work unless so I'm completely live here. So, and this, alrighty, very good. I think that's all done. Very good. And I'm also waiting for just a few more people to kind of show up. But hi, everyone. It's really good to see you guys. Josie, Angelo, Janine. It's always nice to see you guys all, my online family. Hi, Rita, Roxy, Cynthia, Cheryl. Hi, Quinn. All right. Very good. Yeah, Josie, I do my best so that everybody can hear because I know it's a little bit challenging. Oh, hi, Kat. That's nice to see you. And Kristen as well, obviously. All right, so I think I'm going to get started. There's 32 people already here, so let's just go right ahead. So just for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Dr. Odette Suter. I'm a licensed veterinarian and I focus on holistic health care. You can learn more about me and how I practice here on my Facebook page, Odette Suter DVM, or on my website, and I put the link in one of the first comments. My website is Peak Animal Health Center. And other than being with my furry friends, my favorite thing to do is to be with you guys and my online community and just help you out, find better ways of helping your animals and keep them healthier and so on. So anyways, if you want to learn a little bit more about my philosophy, you can also check out my book, What Your Vet Never Told You, Secrets to, okay, I can't remember the rest of it, but anyways, my book. I also have an educational video series called Animal Longevity Secrets Revealed. The link is also in the one of the first comments. And I can also be reached directly through my website or also through Facebook Messenger on my page. So anyways, today we'll talk a little bit about detox. But first of all, I want to start with wishing you guys all a happy National Pet Day. It happens to fall on today. I just noticed that this morning. I'm always a little bit behind with these things. So thanks, Karen Becker, for pointing that out. So I think what better day to do a Facebook Live and talk about things to help them heal and have the best life possible than doing, this Facebook Live on that day. So anyways, I'm really, really happy to see all of you guys here. It's always so heartwarming to see so many people interested in their, in promoting more health for their animals and digging deep, because that's what we're going to do with the detox today. So anyways, it's so great to see you guys all. And, as a veterinarian, obviously, it's very important to me to put information out there. but the only way that can happen is because of you. And I am so grateful for that you guys always share information and pass it on to your friends and families. And so feel free to share this with them as well. Invite them to join, because it's really important. And it's not just important for our animals, because everything that we do for our animals applies to us as well. There's not that much of a difference, really. So anyways, I want to get started today a little bit differently than I usually do, and I want to share my screen and talk a little bit of numbers and such. So let me do that. And oh, I probably have to check that box. There we go. All right, and let me go to my slideshow right here. All right, so anyways, we do have a lot of chronic diseases in our animals these days, same for humans. 45% of dogs over the age of 10 will die of cancer, and cancer accounts for nearly 50% of all disease-related pet deaths each year, which is the leading cause of death. And I can certainly attest to that. I see a lot of that in my practice. So as you can see, we are dealing with a lot of issues. And when we look at the pet health report from Banfield, they actually pooled some numbers between 2006 and 2011, and they found that just in that period of 5 years, that a lot of diseases have significantly increased, including diabetes, dental disease, arthritis in cats has gone up 67%. That's huge. And obesity as well. So a lot of diseases have increased in a very short period of time. And, we have to always ask, why is that? Why do we have such a, large amounts of diseases? And why do they increase so significantly in just such a short period of time? I'm sure we can blame it on diet and everything, but why it doesn't explain it. So that obviously brings me to today's subject of toxicity. And there's another graph here that I wanted to briefly go over with you, is that there's been a significant increase of pet cancer incidents just in the last 17 years. And you can see that it mostly started kind of in the later 90s, where there's been like a jump up in cancers. And, to be honest, when I was in vet school, we didn't really talk a lot about cancer. In fact, I didn't even remember that we had a lecture about it. I did find it though, but, in my papers, in my boxes, but in any case, it was really not a huge subject, and animals were dying more of just old age rather than cancer. And nowadays we see a lot of animals that do have cancer. So there's been a 23-fold increase just in the last 17 years. And, what happened during that time? Well, to maybe explain that jump, in 1994, GMOs were hitting the store. And at the same time, there's also been a significant increase in glyphosate use, because that's what, GMO foods are good, bred for, basically, is to resist glyphosate and other pesticides. So we can certainly explain this jump. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about detoxification. And detoxification has different parts to it. And I want to talk about, the fact that when we do detoxification, we have to mobilize the toxins out of the storage area, because the body will store things out of circulation so that they're not quite as bad. But the way toxins really enter the body is they enter through the lungs, so through breathing, the air that we breathe and our animals breathe, through the skin, and also through the foods that we eat. And all of these toxins have to go through the liver in order to be processed, and then they will be eliminated again through the skin, through the kidneys, through the GI tract, but also a little bit through the lungs. So we have to make sure that all of this can work properly, because if we have any issues in the liver, for example, of processing things, or we have issues with the elimination of toxins, we end up with excess toxins in the body, and they have to be stored somewhere. And we have different toxins. We have fat-soluble toxins and we have water-soluble toxins. And the fat-soluble toxins, they get stored in fatty tissues, including fat cells. So for example, if you have an animal that is overweight, it probably will have quite a bit of toxins also stored in that. And as we get them to lose weight, it's particularly important to take care of the elimination pathways and the liver and such, because we have more toxins that are being released. But we can also have toxins in the bone marrow, in the liver, in the central nervous system, including the brain. Hormone glands, for example, are very fatty tissues, and I see a lot of dogs and cats that have issues with the adrenal glands, which then makes them more prone to having allergies, because they're not making quite enough cortisol, or they're not making enough thyroid hormone. So these fat-soluble toxins, they get pulled out of circulation, but they're not inert, so they're still going to cause issues, but they're not giving the actual, strong symptoms of acute intoxication, such as when, for example, you get your amalgam removed in your mouth. There can be acute intoxication because there's a huge amount of mercury that is being released. So, with the toxins that we're exposed to, because it's more of a gradual increase in toxins or gradual intake of toxins, the body is very good at shuttling them away from circulation so that we don't end up with acute toxicity. And then water-soluble toxins, they usually get stored in joints, blood, tissues, and muscles. And so when we do have these toxic things, stored everywhere in the body, we can end up with skin problems, allergies, autoimmune diseases, diabetes, chronic digestive issues, cancer, as I mentioned already, hormone imbalance, inflammation, neurologic disorders, obesity, weight gain, fatigue, arthritis, joint pain, chronic infection. So you name it, everything kind of leads back to toxicity. And for those of you who have read my book already, you know that there are really only two causes of disease. And those causes are toxins or a deficiency in nutrients. And all of these lead to a malfunctioning of cells, which is really the underlying process that's happening. So we call that diabetes, or we call it hypothyroidism, or we call it joint pain. It's all the same. It's an underlying malfunctioning of cells. So how does the liver work with detoxification? So the liver processes toxins in two phases, and we have toxins that are mostly fat-soluble toxins. Let's just look at the fat-soluble toxins, because there are definitely a lot of those. And these fat-soluble toxins, they have to be converted into water-soluble toxins so that they can be removed from the body through the gallbladder, the kidneys, and bile. That is misspelled. I have to fix that. And then it goes out through the bowel or the urine. So in phase one, what happens is the fat-soluble toxins are converted through the use of B vitamins, glutathione, which is a very important enzyme for detoxification, and acetylcysteine. It also uses vitamin A, C, D3, vitamin E, and then bioflavonoids, including quercetin and others, and then milk thistle. So those are all good for supporting phase one. For phase two, those nutrients that can be useful are amino acids, such as these right here, including taurine, And then for garlic, we can also use garlic, egg, cabbage, and cauliflower and such because they are high in sulfurs and they help with the detoxification or with the phase 2, MSM as well, and then N-acetylcysteine again as well. So that's basically what happens in the liver, and then it gets, it goes into the bile and then out through the bowels. So that's kind of the liver detoxification. So why do we need to detoxify? Well, nowadays we have a lot of chemicals, on this planet. So just since World War II, there have been 50 million new chemicals put out on the market, and many of those are carcinogenic. But only about 85,000 of these chemicals are actually listed in the Toxic Substances Control Act. So, there are a lot more than, what meets the eye. Every year there are 2,000 new chemicals that are being produced and put out there. So we basically now exceed the natural ability of the body to be able to detoxify, and we are living in a very unnatural environment. And in fact, a lot of these toxins that we're now exposed to, the body does not even recognize as toxic because they are so foreign to the body and the liver. So a lot of times these toxins cannot be detoxified all that well. So when we look at the current situation, in the 1940s, we had just a few pounds or kilograms that were of chemicals that were used, and now we're kind of up to 200 plus billion pounds of chemicals that are or kilograms actually, that are being put out into the world every year. So it's a huge, huge change, and the body has not been able to adjust to that. So anyways, I'm going to stop sharing here right now. Okay. I hope you guys were able to see the slides. Sorry, I couldn't really see that. In any case, if not, I can always share them with you later. But you heard me, I'm pretty sure. So anyways, okay, nope, that sucks. Oh well, modern technology. There's always something. Anyway, so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the different toxins that we are exposed to and make some important points. Toxins affect not just one generation. It's not just us that are affected to it, and it's really affecting 3 generations down because it creates epigenetic change in our genes. So basically it turns on certain genes and they turn off certain other genes, and that is actually passed on from the mother to the child and then down further generations. So there are a lot of toxins, a lot of generations that are being affected. And I don't know if you guys ever watched the Pottinger cats or looked into that study. I'm not going to go into that. That's all in my video series as well for more information on that. But you can see that it took several generations for the recovery, even after just one generation of being fed an unhealthy diet. And the study was done in, I think it was in the 1940s, where, as you could see or not see in that, as a matter of fact, you couldn't see the slides. But anyways, in the 1940s, a lot of toxins were, there was a lot less toxins. So everything is a lot worse now. And so it's even more important to feed them a good diet. And we have much less leeway as far as not feeding them what they really need and not doing, not being proactive. We just don't really have that, that leeway to do that nowadays in this world. In this world, it takes a lot to now really stay healthy, and you can't just we can't get away with things, I guess, is what I should say. So nowadays, the average body has about 700 different toxins, and in cord blood from newborns, they found that they had over 200 toxins. And the thought was that toxins don't cross the placenta into the fetus, but that's not true. So our animals are already being born loaded with toxins, and with each generation that gets worse. And because our animals don't have the same lifespan as we do, the turnaround is much faster. So we have more and more generations, and they are more, sicker and sicker and sicker. So that may also be why we see more animals getting sick more quickly. At least that's what I'm seeing in my practice. And a lot of diseases that we try to treat, especially cancer and allergies and autoimmune diseases, they're becoming more and more difficult to treat just because the body is so compromised. I also kind of want to say right here that I know that you all are doing everything that you possibly can for your animals. And if things don't quite show up the way you hoped, please don't judge yourselves, because we are just living in an environment that's not conducive to health. And sometimes, no matter how much we do, it's not enough. So I just want you guys to be very gentle with yourselves when it comes to that. Because I do see, talk to a lot of clients, and, they beat themselves up very harshly. So please don't, because the animals don't really like that either, because they know that you love them, and that you're doing the best that you possibly can. So be very gentle with yourselves, while still doing what needs to be done, obviously. All right, so moving on. So that's kind of, what's going on. So I want to just chat a little bit with you about the different toxins that we are exposed to. And one of the big ones is obviously glyphosate and Roundup. And there's been a significant increase of that in the last, few decades. And with that, there's also been an incredible increase of different diseases, including thyroid cancer. We also have a lot more super weeds, liver cancer, obesity, Alzheimer's, all the different diseases that I already mentioned. And glyphosate was thought to be inert, not damaging to the cells, but glyphosate works through the shikimate pathway, and what it does is it kills microbes. So it's really an antibacterial drug in that sense. And what it does is it kills the microbes in the GI tract, but it also kills the microbes around the cell, the plants, obviously, and in the soil, which then makes the plants not as healthy, because we all need microbes in order to thrive and function properly. So it really does a lot of damage, including affecting the genome. Hold on. I'm kind of looking at my slides here. I don't want to go back to that, but I moved over to GMO already. I was going to go for glyphosate. But anyways, glyphosate does a lot of damage to the GI tract. And where are my glyphosate slides? I'm feeling a little under the weather, and so my brain is not working quite as well. But anyways, glyphosate also damages the tight junctions of the gut lining, which then creates more leaky gut. And that's quite damaging to the body in general, but it also creates leaky gut or leaky brain barrier as well. And so we need to kind of be sure that we are really careful with the glyphosate. And glyphosate can get into everything because it's a water-soluble toxin, so it gets absorbed pretty well, and it ends up in the water everywhere. And so right now, most waters have some amount of glyphosate in it, including rainwater. So if you have a garden and you're making your vegetable, growing some vegetables, you're still going to have some glyphosate in your vegetables just because it's so prevalent everywhere. And glyphosate stays in the environment for about 50 to 60 years. So if we actually stopped using glyphosate now, our future generations would certainly be doing a whole lot better. Heavy metals also increase in the presence of glyphosates, or I should say they become about 1,000 times more toxic. So with all the toxins, it's not so much that each individual toxin is doing something. It's also the combination of all the toxins together that make it worse. So for example, glyphosate, which is part of Roundup, has a level of toxicity, but Roundup also has surfactants in it, which then increases the toxicity of glyphosate. So I know it's pretty scary, and we'll get to the good part because me, I'm not too much into creating a lot of fear and doing fear-based things because there's much more than meets the eye. So just want to lighten it up just a second. But just a little bit more on glyphosate. It also chelates minerals, so that makes the plants less able to absorb minerals from the soil. So they're going to be lacking, causing more deficiency in the body. It also glyphosate also gets incorporated into the RNA, which is part of the genetic makeup, which then as a result can create malformed and defective proteins that can end up in the body, in the cells everywhere, which then makes the body function less well. It damages the extracellular matrix, which then causes a disconnect between cells. And if cells aren't connected well, they can't really communicate with each other, which that is not ideal. It's like, having a company where nobody communicates properly. Everybody does whatever they want. That never really works out, right? It also destroys villi, which are the little finger-like structures in the gut lining. It opens up the blood-brain barrier. And it also promotes what it does is it also chelates aluminum, and then as a result, it can cross the blood-brain barrier. And aluminum is also omnipresent in the environment, and that's also probably why we see so much Alzheimer's and other types of neurologic diseases in humans, but also in our animals. We have a significant, at least in my opinion, a significant increase in anxiety, aggression, depression, all of these things. And that's all because the brain is inflamed from all the toxins that can get in there. And then glyphosate also damages genes in the liver and the kidneys. So then as a result, the detoxification organs aren't working properly. So that's just to say that, you should really not have any glyphosate in your diet or in your animal's diet. And one way that glyphosate gets into the food supply is through grains and also through grain-free things. Just because something is called non-GMO does not mean that it's not loaded with glyphosate. So if you're feeding a food that's kibble, for example, your animal is going to be is going to have a much heavier glyphosate load, and that has been checked actually. So that's not just something I'm pulling out of the air. There have been studies done, and I would have to go digging to find it. But anyway, so glyphosate is a big, big issue. It's one of the most prominent toxins that we're dealing with right now. But again, there's tons of others. It bioaccumulates in the tissues as well, increases the risk of cancer, causes endocrine disruption, birth defect, mitochondrial damage. And, you guys have all heard a lot about mitochondrial damage and its role in metabolic diseases such as cancer. It causes cell death and just a hyper-inflammatory response, which is basically, allergies, autoimmune diseases, and cancers. And I'm sure you all know somebody or have animals that have these types of issues. So definitely a big deal. And then obviously we have plastics and we have all kinds of other toxins in the environment that are causing issues. And when we look at toxins, it's not so much, depending on the amount of chemical that are getting in there, they may have different effects on the body. So, for example, again, with glyphosate, if we have a low level of glyphosate in the body, it will act a little bit more as an endocrine disruptor. And, that's much more difficult to, prove, obviously. But at a higher dose, it will be, more causing more damage, such as, tumors and alterations in the liver and kidneys. So just because there's a low amount of a chemical doesn't mean it's not still doing something, but it may be different. So anyways, endocrine disruptors, a lot of toxins are endocrine disruptors, and we see a lot of damage and changes that way, with infertility, and certain the reptiles and amphibians are actually changing, to, their sex where, okay, I can't remember that now. So maybe I shouldn't go down that route. I'm sorry, guys, my brain is a little off. But anyway, so where are these toxins all coming from? They're in the foods, they're in the water. So it's very important that you give your animals clean water that has been properly filtered. And one of these little Brita filters is not nearly enough, especially if you're on city water because of the fluoride content. And it also doesn't take out any of the pesticides that are in the water and drugs, because all the drugs that we take will end up in the water supply as well. So if you have some depression issues, maybe just taking some city water, you'll get your antidepressants, with that. And that's a joke, obviously. I'm being very sarcastic. So definitely clean water is really important. And food, obviously, very important, because the biggest part of detoxification is to remove the toxins before they even get into the system. So to not feed toxins and expose them to what we can control. Obviously, there's a lot that we can't control, but let's just work on the things that we can control so that they can have less of a toxic load. So that would also mean not using pesticides in around the house, having clean, soaps, so don't use these soaps that have luminescent colors, because they're certainly pretty toxic. These plug-in scented lamps, scented candles, all of these are toxic. Buying furniture that is either old or older already to get rid of some of the fire retardants, or buying furniture that doesn't have fire retardants in them, which is a little harder to find, but it's certainly available. And if you're carpeting your house or if you're painting your house, make sure that these are all toxin free. And there are definitely sources online that you can find sources to do that. So it's very important that we control what we can control, because we are still exposed to a lot that we can't control, and that is a little bit harder. So, again, do the best you can. We live in a polluted world. That's just kind of the reality right now. So we just do the best we can, but we vote with our money. So if we ask for organic things and buy organic things at the store, then more organic things will show up. If we go to a restaurant and we say, yeah, I want, GMO free and glyphosate free food, then they will start listening. So if enough people say that, it will change things. So anyways, I want to get a little bit into, what the detoxification methods are, and then address some of your questions. And please, if you haven't already, please put the questions in the comment section so that I can get to those. So the detox. Okay, I need to take a step back, because detoxification may sound very attractive, but it's very important that your animal is in good shape or has some sort of balance, and that you prepare the body for detoxification. Because if the body cannot handle detox and doesn't have the nutrients it needs to detoxify properly, then your animal is going to have a reaction and feel worse. So we don't want that. So the key nutrients is that we need to feed them a good diet. Sorry, the keys to detoxification is that we feed them a good diet that contains all the nutrients that I mentioned earlier, that are necessary for detoxification in the liver. So we need to make sure that they have all of these nutrients and have some form of stability. And that, by providing them a good diet, we will also decrease some of the inflammation, which then frees up the immune system to work better and also help with, the cleanup, because the immune system is a bit of a cleanup crew in the body. So it will also help with that. So we need to give them all the nutrients they need, but we also need to make sure that they're able to excrete these mobilized toxins. So we need to open up the liver pathways. And we need to clean out, also open up the pathways of the kidneys. And we need to make sure that we have something in the gut that will help to bind the toxins that are excreted. And of course, it goes without saying, we need to make sure that the animal is going to the bathroom regularly. So if you have an animal that's constipated, you need to fix that first to help with that. And again, the toxins, they get excreted through the liver and go into the bile, and then from the bile into the GI tract. So it's a good idea to give a little bit of binders right before a meal, maybe about a half an hour or so before a meal, because then whatever the bile is being secreted after a meal, it will, the toxins will be bound and then get excreted that way. So that's very important. And the other thing is too, detoxification is really not a one-time thing. It's really something that we need to do on an ongoing basis. And I do that every day with my body just by what I eat. For example, I have a little bit of dandelion greens in my smoothie. I have different vegetables in my smoothie. I eat a clean diet. And, you can do the same thing for your animals as well, so that you constantly do a little bit of detox and support the body, because we really don't want to accumulate things. And the detoxification protocol that we use also needs to be able to reach the cells, because that's where the toxins are stored. So those are the keys. And the detox roadmap from Dr. Pompa, and I'm not going to go back into screen sharing here because it didn't seem to have worked, but it has 3 components. And one of the components is really a prep phase. And in that prep phase, we need to make sure that we can, support the body and give it the nutrients that it needs, so that it can, function properly. It also needs to help the membranes of the cells to be stable, and in good functioning order, so that things can, go through and be excreted. Because if we have waste buildup in the cells because of defective membranes, we need to fix that as well, so that it can be out. We also need to make sure that the cells have enough energy, and that, goes back to feeding them a good diet, making sure the hormones are doing well, making sure the microbiome is healthy and the gut is healthy, because microbiome, and I couldn't do a lecture or a Facebook Live without me, talking about the microbiome. But anyways, we also need to make sure that that's in good working order. And for that, I can refer you to the 6 pillars of health, in my book, but also in my video series where I go into a lot more detail on the detox as well. And I just listened to it, the last couple days and this morning. And, for those of you who know me, I'm not one to pat myself on the back easily. I'm kind of a bit of a perfectionist, but I was listening to my lecture. I'm like, damn, that was really good. So I highly recommend, if you want to dive a little bit deeper, to, check out my video series. All right. So anyways, we have to have that prep phase. We have to have good cellular energy so that the cells can actually do what they're supposed to. And then we have to open the detox pathways, and we also need to have true binders to detoxify. So those are really the 3 phases of detoxification. So you can see that, it's not a good idea to just take a sick animal and just, load it up with some detox supplements without making sure that the base is covered. So that's the roadmap. And then different detox methods, once the body has reached a certain degree of stability. And I have to say that I very rarely see animals that have any sort of detox reaction. It's very rare. And if they do, then I definitely always back off and make sure that I figure out what's going on and, what needs to be supported before I can, before we can continue with the detox. So there are different ways of detoxification. There are so many of them. One of them, and the ways that you can do detoxification is orally, obviously with things that are taken in through herbs, for example, etc. But we can also do rectal detoxification through suppositories, for example. Ozone suppositories can be helpful because ozone will be taken up and it will help stimulate the liver to work better. And the rectum also has, good function in absorbing things. So if there's, oral issues, for example, if an animal doesn't want to take what you're trying to give them, sometimes we can also do it rectally. IV is another option as well. I don't use IV all that much, except for, during the dental procedure or at the very end of it with vitamin C, just because to me it's just too invasive. To be honest, I'm not a very invasive kind of person. If I have other ways to do something, I will go that route. Obviously, detoxing through diet, restoring the gut health, and then fasting can be a very good way to detoxify the system, because it will help to kind of pull things out and give the body a little bit of a break and to focus on cleaning and healing rather than eating and digesting. Obviously, with cats and horses, you do not want to do fasting because horses will get ulcers pretty quickly. And with cats, they can get very sick if they're fasted, especially when they're overweight, because they will mobilize a lot of fats that then damage the liver and create havoc. So don't do that. But dogs can easily fast for a day. That's absolutely no problem. And then exercise is very important as well, because exercise will help with lymph drainage and will help to support the body that way, because a lot of toxins will come out through the lymph and get into the detox that way. There are also different detox binders such as EDTA, which binds and chelates toxins that can then be removed from the system that way. Glutathione, which is one of the most important enzymes in the body for detoxification, can be used as well. But it does have to be a liposomal form because it doesn't get absorbed easily. I believe it gets destroyed. And then binding of toxins. And I saw somebody asking about binders. Charcoal tablets, they bind toxins as well. It can also help with a leaky gut and expel toxins, prevent the toxins to go in. We also have zeolites, but we have to be a little careful with zeolites because some of them can contain aluminum. So we certainly don't want to have more toxins go into the system that way. Clinoptilolite, which is also a type of zeolite, can be used because what it does is it has a bit of a cage formation, which then attracts toxins and traps them in that cage and can remove them that way. We can also use a little bit of chlorella and spirulina, although they are not very strong binders, but it can certainly help. Foot bath in humans. You can also try with your own animals, I guess. Certainly foot baths are good and cleaning their feet once they come in because of things that they, collect on their feet and paws, and you know how they are. They go and lick everything, so they will take on the toxins, that were on their feet. And then nutritional supplements such as vitamin C and B vitamins and others. I'm a big fan of vitamin C. And I use the liposomal form, and I use that for, to prepare my animal patients for the dentals and or any other anesthesia they go through, and then also afterwards. And where I work, we also use vitamin C IV at the end of anesthesia. And the end of anesthesia is very important because if you give vitamin C right before or during the process, it will destroy the anesthetic drug so quickly that you will have to give more. And I had an experience of that when I took extra vitamin C before I went to the dentist, who needed to numb my my nerves, and let's just say it did not work. So lesson learned. So vitamin C should really not be used the day of, and like before anesthesia, and you're not supposed to feed anything before anesthesia anyway. But anyways, afterwards it's good. And then some of the detox supplements that I use are from 5-leaf pet botanicals. They have a really good detox protocol that cleans out the liver and the kidneys and also the blood. I use them on a lot of patients, and they do pretty well, although the tinctures kind of don't taste that great. But when you mix them up with some foods, they do pretty well. And it's a 3-week detox protocol. I use it, spring and fall. Spring and, the times where seasons change is where the body does the most, detox-wise. So that's always a good time to do that. And that's why I'm doing this Facebook Live now, because it's springtime. So it's a good time to do some detoxification. So 5-leaf pet botanicals, they have really good products. They're all organic and very well tolerated generally. I use the liposomal vitamin C from Live On Labs, and then there's activated charcoal, SAMe, dimethyl glycine, which is a precursor for SAMe, and SAMe is a precursor for glutathione. And then you can also use ozone. I use it more rectally, and then certainly restoring the gut again. And so I do a lot of fecal transplants. All right, done with that. Let's just see what you guys came up with as far as questions go. I think I'm just going to work my way up, and if I don't cover all of your questions, then I'll do that later, just typing them in. So Desmarie, what do you recommend for calcium phosphorus supplement for home cooked? Well, that is not really a detox. Well, I guess it is. Bone would be the best source for calcium phosphorus supplement for animals, but you want to make sure that you know what else you're putting on the food and how much of what an animal really needs. So I recommend working with someone who has a computer system to figure out the exact amount that needs to be put in based on the other things that you're adding to the food. Can you recommend products elsewhere in writing? I live in Bermuda. Some products are hard to source. I may have to import. Yeah, Tonya, 5-leaf pet botanicals, you can ask them if they send out. I don't know. But otherwise, if you have a friend in the States, they can always order it for you and then mail it out. That shouldn't be too much of an issue. Janine, what do you recommend for a detox? Wow, I just lost that one. Oh, detox for puppy vaccines. It depends on the vaccine. Usually for general vaccine is Thuya. But for rabies, it would be Lysine or Lysine. I don't know. Everybody says it differently. But I also add extra vitamin C before and after. Generally, I don't do a whole lot of detox with young puppies because their body is still growing and developing and everything. Obviously, if I had a very sick one, where I felt like some detox might be beneficial, I would. But once they're at least once they're a year old, I definitely start to detox on a regular basis. Krista Fox, what are your thoughts on Ion Gut Health as far as detox goes? I like Ion Gut Health because what it does is it closes up the tight junctions. It also helps communication of the microbiome, of the microbes, and also communication in the body. So I think it's a very good adjunct. I usually use that to start, gut health and, healing the gut. So it's certainly something that I use very frequently. Josie, I'm a groomer. I have a hard time finding 100% organic shampoo conditioner. 4-legger shampoo is not right for long coat breed. Long time to dry. Detangler spray is not safe. I have no choice. Well, the choice would be to maybe cut off the hair. And I know that's not what you want to hear. But, I'm probably not the best person to ask about hair products because, I just wash my hair with shampoo and cut off the extra. I don't use conditioner, so maybe some other people can chime in on that one. I know that Dr. Karen Becker has a shampoo on Mercola. Can't remember if there's a conditioner that goes with that, but I think adding a little coconut oil may also help with, kind of keeping things a little softer. But again, I'm not the expert on that. Maybe some other people can chime in on that. Tonya, yes, I was going to ask about a fecal. Yes, good. The liposomal brand, I mentioned that, is Live On Labs. What do you recommend? Okay. Is Quicksilver the liposomal product you use? No. Quicksilver must be a colloidal silver. It definitely. Oh, it's a company. Never mind. No, I use Live On Labs. For my liposomal products, but there are other ones as well. BioPure has one. BioPure US has one. Mercola has liposomals as well. So there are different ones. With the Live On Labs, you just have to be careful. I at least for the vitamin C, they use soy to make it a liposomal. They use soy lecithin. So if you have an animal that has sensitivity to soy, you wouldn't be able to use that. But I really like their product just because they really work. And in the world, it's like there's risks and benefits, and nothing is perfect. So to me, the benefit of the product working outweighs the the risk of from the soy. Okay. How do we get your video series? I have that link in one of the first comment here, but you can also find it through my website, Peak Animal Health Center. Okay. Tonya, maybe I'll have to eat some of my dandelion greens rather than feeding all to my bunny. Yeah, I like dandelion greens. I put them in my smoothie, but I also make salad. My mom used to make a salad of really the young dandelion greens, and then she would make, grill a little bit of bacon and chop some boiled eggs into it as well. It was really good. All right. Definitely organic. If I didn't mention that, obviously you have to feed organic because there are a lot of foods that are quite, loaded with chemicals. And the Environmental Working Group, EWG.org, is one resource for toxins as well. And they always put out a dirty dozen, clean 16, 15, or 13. I can't remember. But anyways, they have a list of foods that you really need to get organic and some that are not quite as important. So for example, strawberries, you never want to buy strawberries that are not organic. And even organic strawberries can have a lot of toxins in them because of how they grow them. Again, just because it's organic doesn't mean it's all clean. Apricots, peaches, those are usually loaded with chemicals. So check out that list as well. I think I answered that. Can your detox protocol be used by humans too? Well, I can't make that recommendation because I can't, I'm a veterinarian. I'm not a human doctor. But what I can say is I do use the 5-leaf detox protocol for myself twice a year. But I do all kinds of other stuff as well. I do some fasting a couple times a year if I can handle it. That also helps to clean out things, and I do things on a daily basis. But good question, Carol. Yes, the video is going to be available to watch later. All of my Facebook Lives are on my Facebook page in the videos section, so you can always go back to that. Tonya, scary. Yeah, that's, the outgassing that you're referring to. Yes, in cars, TVs, everything. That's why when I had to get a new car this year or last year, I bought a used car that was already where most of the chemicals had already outgassed, but doesn't mean it doesn't continue. But yeah, if you buy a car, buy it in the summer and let it just stand out in the heat for a few months with the window cracked a little bit, and then by the winter time it'll be safer already. Terry, how about if I buy spring water? The problem with buying water, it usually comes in plastic, and plastic leaches into the water, and you also never know what you're actually getting, if it is actually spring water or if somebody just filled it with tap water. So I'm not a huge fan of bottled water, plus it also pollutes the environment significantly. So what I recommend is to get some really good filtration system. Reverse osmosis can be one, and maybe I'll do a Facebook Live on water at some point. But one other option, if you don't want to install a filter, is you can go to one of the bigger stores. They have the machines where you can bring your jug and have that filled. Those are usually reverse osmosis, so definitely much better water that way. And it's also more fresh. It's not been sitting on a shelf forever. So I'm not a big fan of bottled water. It's really, if in a pinch, I will buy some if I forgot my water bottle, but I don't use that. Stacy, birth control too. Yeah, that ends up in the water as well. Desmarie, how does it affect the proteins you feed your dog? Meaning what the protein feed is. I'm not sure I understand that. Maybe you can, add to that. Atrazine, yeah, that's a big issue as well. Anything pesticidal, for mosquitoes, for example, if you're spraying for mosquitoes, that's always, a big issue as well. All right. My 10-month-old puppy had a hair mineral test, shows high mercury and arsenic. Doc recommended zeolites, bentonite clay for detox. Any other recommendations for detox? You got to go with the 6 pillars again, making sure the gut is healthy, that it gets a good diet, and then also, support the detox organs, the liver and the kidneys. But yeah, that's one way of testing. I didn't get too much into that, but that's all in the detox videos on my video series for more information. There was a psychiatrist who did a talk at some point. I can't remember her name, but she works with kids that have autism. And what she found is that, she would do hair analysis before she started to, do any kind of treatment. And then mostly work on their GI tract and their microbiome. And then she would retest the hair about a year later. And what she found is that there was a significant reduction in toxins just from fixing the gut and the microbiome. And so they had much decreased load, toxic load, just from doing that. So I would highly recommend working on that as well. But, congrats to you, Lisa, for being so proactive on that. That's amazing. All right. Allison, my dog has Chiari malformation and so takes pregabalin for pain management. Is there something I should be doing to support his liver for long-term use? Yes, basically whatever I talked about. Yeah, Tonya apples. Okay, dirty dozen and clean 15. Well, thanks. Yeah, apples are really bad as well. Janet, I grow domesticated dandelion in my garden for us, the dogs, and my rabbits. Yes, I do the same. I don't want to say that I grow it, it just comes up. But yeah, I just love my dandelion. Ellen, what regimen would you recommend for a 4-year-old Boston who has been raised holistically so far? I feed homemade, lightly cooked, balanced and raw, no vaccines except puppy and 1 rabies shot. For every animal, I recommend twice a year detox at least, and then, continuing with a healthy diet as much as possible. And yeah, that's pretty much it. GMO certified free. Yeah, it's good to not have GMO for sure, because that can cause all sorts of other issues, which I go into in my video series some more as well. Don't have time today. But GMO free doesn't mean that it's glyphosate free. It still should be organic, because a lot of glyphosate Roundup is being used on wheat, for example, and other crops to make them ripen more quickly so that they can have a faster turnaround and produce more of it. Because glyphosate is a desiccant, so it dries it up and creates the crop to mature more quickly. So GMO certified free is good, but it's not enough. Stathia, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. How do we know how long to use these products and in what amounts? They do come, and I'm assuming you're talking about the 5-leaf detox or vitamin C. 5-leaf detox, they have a protocol with instructions on how to do that. Vitamin C, I usually kind of eyeball it a little bit, but for myself, with the liposomal vitamin C, I usually, if I need it for, to support my immune system a bit more immediately, I will go quite high as far as dosing goes, and I haven't had any side effects. With vitamin C, if you use a powdered form, it doesn't get absorbed all that well, and it can cause diarrhea, and we call that bowel tolerance. So you can't really reach the same level in the blood and the tissues as you can with liposomal. And liposomal vitamin C is also almost more potent than IV vitamin C because it is wrapped with little fat bubbles, and the cell membranes are made of fat, so they get easily included into the membranes of the cells, and then the vitamin C goes into the cells. So liposomal vitamin C is very potent that way. Dosing, that's really something you'd have to kind of check with your vet on that, because a little bit illegal for me to make dosing recommendations in general. Lori, thank you for your input on the shampoos. Yeah, thank you guys for all the shampoo suggestions. I appreciate that. Do you like the product Denamarin? Denamarin is SAMe. Yes, it can be very helpful, but for liver things, and that's usually the first go-to that traditional vets use. Certainly is a good option. I have used it myself. No, I've actually taken SAMe too at some point, but then I found it to be too expensive. A little cheap sometimes. Anyways, yeah, you can certainly use it. I have seen dogs not do too well on it as well, so it will depend a little bit. But if a dog has liver issues, it's always good to recheck anyways, about a month or two after you start any sort of treatment, just to kind of see how things are going. And then okay, I think I sort of got through most of the questions, unless you guys posted some more below. Oh yeah, Janet, what is your opinion on hair tests? Just got results from Parsley Pet, showed a slight elevation in mercury and arsenic for my just turning 3-year-old golden. I feed a clean raw diet, only small fish, no vaccines, no toxins, feed water. Trying to determine source. I've tested my water, it's okay. Could all the balls and bumpers this retrieving not carries around be the culprit? Any suggestions? Okay, that's a very good question. And I just did a hair analysis for myself too, and I came back with having some mercury in it as well. And I've been trying to rack my brain where that came from, because I'm pretty much on the same diet your dog is. So I'm not sure. I mean, if you have some of these retrieving things, it might be worth checking with the company if they've ever tested them for mercury. But mercury is a little all prevalent, so it could also be coming from other sources, from the protein and such that is fed in general. So what to do, or what my opinion is on hair analysis. I like hair analysis. They're a little bit more difficult to interpret, just because there's no toxicity or low toxicity in the hair analysis does not mean that there's toxicity in the body, because in order for toxins or heavy metals to show up in hair, the body has to excrete them. And sometimes the body will not excrete toxins if it doesn't have the ability to do so. So just because it's low doesn't mean that the toxicity level is low in the body. There's also a bit of a limitation with hair analysis in the sense that it only tests for mostly heavy metals. And, if we look at the, millions of toxins that are floating around, it really doesn't test for a whole lot. I mean, certainly it's much better than nothing, and I use them as well because they can also give you a bit of information on nutrients, minerals in particular, and help to balance out the body a little bit better. So anyways, that's a little bit where I stand with that. Can you use milk thistle daily? I'm not a big fan of using the same thing over and over forever and ever. Milk thistle is certainly a good herb, but I think it's also good to give the body a bit of a break. What lab is fave for hair? I use doctor's data, but there are all kinds. I'm not familiar with the parsley. I mean, I've heard of parsley pet, but I don't use that one. But there are many labs who do hair analysis. Can you use Ion Gut Health daily for years, or should limit the duration? Again, I'm really more of like a changing things around kind of person, because the body changes and it doesn't always need the same thing. If you can do muscle testing for your own animals, that would be one way to kind of figure out what the body needs today. So that would be probably a skill that would be good to learn. Lisa, where can you recommend getting Lysine for rabies detox? You can find it. I'd have to post the link. I don't have it on the top of my head. Give how often, before and after the shot? No, I give it after only. I don't give it before unless they already have rabies vaccine side effects, in which case I probably would recommend not vaccinating again. So I give it after for 7 days. Yeah, Gap Stay, I can use Lindsay McLean. Yes, Lindsay, she was such an amazing person. Unfortunately, she passed away. She used to be the one who interpreted my hair analyses, just because I wasn't very good at that. Unfortunately, she passed away, but yes, feel free to check out her website. It's Equine Plus Feed, I think, equineplusfeed.com. And she has done so much research, and her feed that she has for horses is so amazing, because she knows, she knew what the toxins were in the environment and how to boost the metabolic pathways to kind of help the body detoxify, but also replenish the things that were missing. So if you have a horse, this is the best food that you can buy for your horse. It's a little bit more expensive than the regular food, but if you have horses, that is the way to go. And an interesting story, and I think I'm going to end after that, with her feed, and she also has detox supplements and supplements for healing the gut. But it was really interesting. I lived in Aiken for a while and was doing some horse work there, and I went into a barn, and all these horses looked amazing. They had a great top line, meaning they had good musculature along their spine. They were shiny, they were good weight, they just looked happy and everything. So I asked the lady, well, what are you feeding? And she says, well, it's just from a small company. I'm sure you don't know it, And I'm like, well, I want to know, if all of your horses look so great, I want to know, because most barns I used to go to, I mean, the horses just looked awful, shaggy coat, poor top line, sunken in, not happy looking, all kinds of metabolic issues. I mean, crusty necks. I mean, you name it, they had it. So anyways, I got into a barn where all the horses look good. I want to know what she's feeding. Well, it turns out she was feeding, the Equine Plus feed from Lindsay McLean. her company used to be called Vital Royale, and I think they still have the website. But anyways, that was testament enough, that I can go into a barn and actually recognize that they are feeding what I recommend. So that was really quite incredible. All right, I'm gonna let you all go because I've kind of reached my limit here physically. But as usual, it's always so nice to be around all of you guys. You always give me more energy, and I always feel happy to be with my community and have so many amazing, amazing people, doing such great things for their animals and asking questions and helping to improve the planet and life for everybody. And I just love you guys so, so much for that. And please feel free to share, because that's how we put out the word, and that's how we change lives and how we change our planet. So I appreciate that so much, because you're the messengers. I'm just providing some information, but what you guys share with others, not just from me, but from other vets and other people that you think have good messages, that's how we change the world. Little by little. So anyways, thank you so much, and please check out the links. I also have a newsletter sign up that you can sign up for, obviously, and follow it. If you wouldn't mind following my page, that would be great as well. Facebook likes that, and that kind of puts out the word a little bit more as well. So anyways, thank you guys so much. Have a nice, happy pet day. Do something special for your animals. I recommend being out in nature and going for a walk. I think they would much appreciate that, and obviously a little treat. So anyways, have a great day. Love you all. Bye.